time has expired. Mr. Duncan is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Use my time mainly to lay out some facts before I ask a question. I'm concerned about the amount of property that the federal government owns as a whole. And when we look at a Western map and look at the Western states, it's concerning the folks within Congress that represent those states and the amount of property that is not available for residential, commercial development, energy utilization, and other things. I think about my home state and the amount of property the federal government owns in a county like McCormick, South Carolina, and that property is not available for industrial development and for other things. And their tax base is very, very low. And they struggle because the federal government owns such a huge portion of that very rural county. So those are the number one concerns. And then we see that we're wanting to buy 120,000 more acres in Tennessee. It just seems to be concerning when I look at the fact, and this is, well, let me back up and talk about deferred maintenance for just a second, because I think my friend from Tennessee is going to expound on this, but I look in South Carolina, there's 275 projects in our state, or a total cost or deferred maintenance cost of $85 million. If you go to Tennessee, 357 projects, almost $100 million. We can't pay for what we've got now. So we're going to spend tax dollars to purchase more that we can't maintain, and this just seems to exacerbate the problem. The federal government ought to be selling properties that we currently own that are sitting vacant in this city that we're having to maintain, and those need to be sold, and that money needs to go down to pay down the public debt. We're $17 trillion in debt in this nation. Let me repeat that number, $17 trillion. We're borrowing money from China just to meet our normal operating expenses as a nation, and we're going to borrow more money from China to buy more property in Tennessee. That baffles my constituents. And so when I look at the current refuge boundaries of Chickasaw and Lower Hatchie, it's about 83,500 acres. And when I look at the number of acres within that existing boundary that are not owned by the Fish and Wildlife Service, there's about 45,156 acres within that Chickasaw and Lower Hatchie boundary there that we don't own yet. So instead of trying to take taxpayer dollars and maybe shore up our boundaries and buy all the contiguous property within those boundaries, we're going to go out here and buy another 120,000 acres to extend to another refuge. That doesn't make sense to me. When we're taking property out of row crop by doing that, we're taking the property out of production agriculture altogether. We're taking the timber, the bottomland timber, in a time that we hopefully are going to see a rebound in construction and need to harvest that hardwood timber for that. And so the question I have for you, for the Fish and Wildlife Service, is why we're not targeting that 45,000 acres. Is it not available? Is there not a way we can make it available? And shouldn't we identify those landowners and try to own that in fee simple title before we go to buy 120,000 other acres? Could you answer that question?
Thank you. What we're trying to do is our job is to ensure that in the United States of America, that in the future we continue to have abundant populations of fish and wildlife, and in order to do that, we have to be able to think 50 to 100 years into the future. So what we're doing is we're trying to lay out a vision for the future that we believe, in concert with our partners in the state of Tennessee and our partners nationwide, organizations like Ducks Unlimited and others, that we are trying to identify a landscape that will continue to provide these abundant and healthy wildlife resources that we believe that we need and need to enjoy in the future. And so what we're doing is we're outlining a vision for the future. And so what we see here as we propose an expansion is what we believe is responsible and will contribute to vibrant wildlife populations nationwide. And that's our responsibility. And Congress has asked us to consider and to grow the National Wildlife Refuge system strategically in order to provide those benefits. And this is one of those areas where we believe we can do that, working with local communities. And so that's why we're doing it, is because it's our responsibility to think 50 and 100 years into the future.
But let me be clear. No one appreciates the job that you've done and continue to do more than I do. I'm an avid outdoorsman. I've taken the opportunity to experience tremendous hunts and fishing experiences at western and eastern Mississippi Basin and other places on federal land. So I understand that and I appreciate that. But we're in days of austerity. We're in days of austerity, and I would be more apt to support a option on the purchase of that going forward when times get not as lean as we are now. And if that option expired because we didn't have the money as a nation to purchase that, so be it. That's what private business does. But the simple purchase like this of 120,000 acres concerns me in these times. And we need to be clear. As Americans, we need to understand the amount of debt and the fact we're running deficits every year. We can't pay our bills without borrowing money to do so. And so when private individuals and small businesses can't pay their bills, they don't go out and mortgage the future just to acquire more stuff. We just don't do that. And the government shouldn't operate that way either. That's philosophical, but it's common sense. And so I appreciate that, but I will go back to commending you for the job you do, leveraging those dollars that Ducks Unlimited and other conservation groups put together. I have seen the benefit of that. But I just think we need to proceed cautiously on things like this going forward. And with that, I'll yield, because I know the gentleman from Tennessee has a vested interest in this issue. So, Mr. Chairman, thanks for letting me go over, and I yield back.